There's like a light show.
There is a share screen, green color arrow.
Okay. Namaste. Uh, Today's topic is kind of going in different directions because we are kind of winding up the topic and the lessons related to Sanatana Dharma. So there are, we'll mention different paths, and then we are going to the future on the global stage. Where do we place the importance and key concepts, the fundamentals of Hindu Dharma, and how it is going to impact both demographically and otherwise? So, in several ways, some of the key components are already being used by other faith traditions and without acknowledging or giving the roots of that tradition, uh, but still they're being absorbed. And some of the ideas of recycling and things like that, those also are modern way of living. Meditation has already become not a point of ridicule, but a continuous kind of practice recommended by the medical doctors. So let's start with this. Coming out of the box of religion. So this is the most important thing. I don't know what is the problem with our own. What is this? ये क्या हो गया?
किसी किसी और ने कंट्रोल ले लिया है मैडम। आपको डिसेबल करना पड़ेगा। किसी और ने इधर टैंपर करने की कोशिश करी है।
So what should I do?
स्टॉप शेयरिंग एंड रीशेयर अगेन।
अच्छा, देखती हूँ क्या करें। My God. Yeah. Sharing has stopped. Okay.
अगर जरूरत पड़े तो इस मीटिंग में कोई हो जो इसकी पहचान ना हो तो उसे बाहर कर दें।
And कौन है जो ऐसा अब तो
क्योंकि ये शरारत तो जो लोग इसके अंदर हैं वही तो कर रहे होंगे ना।
अच्छा, so this was a deliberate kind of thing?
मैडम, वी आर इन अ कल्चर वॉर। किसी को क्या चीज लगती है अब कहना मुश्किल है।
Okay. Sure. अभी तो फिर दोबारा करना पड़ेगा सब कुछ। Yeah. Now it is shared.
Yes, Auntie ji, we can see it now. Yes.
Okay. All right. So coming out of the box of religion, and this is where the whole issue is resting. So long we use the word religion, we will never really get out the box. So we have to use the proper terminology, and we say, you can say eternal faith traditions. That is what David Sprawley used for the Western people and others. And some people use Sanatana Dharma, which is the correct word also. And if you use Hindu Dharma, that is also correct, more likely known. But if you use the word religion, then you will never really get out of the biblical framework or from the framework of other people, their mode of thinking. So, whereas the Western civilization started some 2000 years back, not even that, but Hindu traditions, Sanatana Dharma is as old as the cosmos. Whether anybody expressed felt or not felt, that is a separate issue. But it has been existing. It is part of the entire universal mapping. So accepting the Eurocentric view, which is speculation, mapping on this legend or that legend, and then false deductions, and legends and myths. Now, there is a difference between legend and there is myth. Myth means it never happened. It is totally, fabricated. Legends is something which is stated in allegories or with metaphor, or it is a hyperbolic statement. You see, when Wordsworth said, I saw thousands of daffodils in a glance, he had not counted 1,000. That is poet's way of emphasizing that there are a lot of flowers. So same thing when the legend says that everywhere, recording stopped.
You can start it again.
Okay. So accepting Eurocentric view is not acceptable. Legends and myths, they're not the same thing. And we have to create our own narrative. And we have to emphasize what is legend, what is myth. I gave an example in the last lesson. So creating our own narrative. Plans and strategies to counter the myths, labels, and perceptions. We deny the word Hinduism. We deny the word religion. We deny the word that we are perceived as fatalistic, fundamentalist, and all the derogatory categories that they have created. So that which is real is eternal. And that is laws of nature and cosmic reality. We never created it. Nobody created it. Whoever did that, we do not know that entity or that person or that energy or that consciousness. So having said that, it precedes all existence, it precedes all comprehension of the totality. And knowledge is changeable. So information that is taught and learned, that can be changed, that grows and that is ignored or that is absorbed. So knowledge of something. So the purpose of this particular lesson is that A, we get out of the box of religion. B, we counter all these myths and labels and use the correct terminology or the Sanskrit words. There is no such word as mythology, and there is no such word as legends. The word they have used is gatha. And when people are stating, narrating a gatha, a katha, now Hindi word is katha. So those gathas are not myths, they are glorifications. And part of it is true, basic part. So knowledge of something, if you have false knowledge, that also is bad. And what is artificially created is bad. What our own mindset has dictated us to accept and reject, that is also knowledge, but it is limited. This white box, what is going on with this white box? Anyway, some challenges while creating our own narrative. So we also have our own fault lines. It is not that it is somebody else's fault, it is our fault. We are not able to get rid of that mind which follows others. Instead of saying our own known truth, we follow others and gurgitate the same thing. We listen to others and let out that perception. Accessing the correct and coherent knowledge base. This is now becoming difficult because some of the old manuscripts, eventually Shruti was converted into manuscripts. So that itself is not available. When it is available, it is in a language, classical Sanskrit, and their poems, verses, it's not easy to understand, even for the Sanskrit scholars. The government of India is now digitalizing the entire Hindu literature, Vedic as well as post-Vedic. So, role of Swamis and lineages. It was great at the time. Shankaracharya was there, Ramanujan, and many others. But those Gurukul lineage completely stopped as soon as the British came. They imposed their own curriculum and syllabus, and the Gurukul tradition vanished. And lineages also, nobody knows what is the lineage of our Guru except knowing our Gotra, and that doesn't help. So temple priests, they are as clueless as an ordinary person. It is not. It is a generalization. That doesn't mean that some are not well versed. It means, in general, temple priests are not. For them, it is a way of making a living. And minimum requirement they fulfill: chanting, arti, less than what most of the intellectuals know. So freelance teachers of Hinduism, priests and Bhagavatacharyas, they have their own ego inserted in that. You see, people talk about, and if anybody raises questions clarifying, they immediately put it down. No, you are wrong. You see, that is the tendency. I have met several acharyas, and not only the acharya or the Swamini or Swami, they object to our comment, but the followers of those Swamis also object, as if you said something, so awful and offensive to the Acharya. So this kind of mindset is counter to the exercise of free will. So I do not minimize the Bhagavad Acharyas. I myself follow the Vedanta traditions and lectures on Bhagavad Gita. I read it also every month. But again, that does not help the next generation. It does not help people who are trying to advocate something or keeping it to the next generation, passing it on. So, organizational trust. We have several organizations here. And in America, they are actually, the origin is in India also, some of them. They are really very egocentric. Each one of them is self-serving and looking for some other goals. And the very person who represents at the American level and performs ceremonies, he doesn't even know how to chant Gayatri Mantra. And I am eyewitness to that. So that is the condition. I am giving the context, what we are up against. So we do not have a proper organization, and those organizations are useless to begin with, and they are egocentrics. I haven't seen in 20 years they have added anything to propagation or clarification or dialogue. They haven't created a forum where we can come out and join together. We do not have teamwork as well. So, having said that, so whom to follow? many children, I mean students, I go to so many colleges and schools and give them these kind of presentations, and they ask me whom to follow. Now that's a very ticklish question. The Rig Veda, the beginning of record keeping. So we can follow the Rig Veda. But again, I said it is difficult to follow. So tell us about the religious, social, political, and economic life of the Vedic communities of Vedic kingdom. Now, this is accessible from Rig Veda, but you have to know at least Devanagari script in order to see where this section of Chand is going. Some are explaining the geography as well as glorification of the natural forces. Some are explaining in a very allegorical way, like Indra, Vajra, and they are actually telling us the rainy season or rain making clouds, where they are, and they tell the geography as well. So political conditions, they also said such and such king did this and in the passing. And then economic life. So how the Vedic communities lived and they grew this. The very fact that in the Havan Kund you put a lot of samida and all of that thing is grown roots and they are fragrant and they have properties. So that kind of thing. That basic kind of glance over page by page, one can really know where the Vedic verses are going and what they are explaining. You can lean on the Hindi and English translations, but they are incorrect. And they do not even tell the names of the devas or who created this chant. So that is why I say they learn Devanagari and read this, or Devanagari can be, written in Roman English. So, but it is a voluminous task. Again, it takes, decades to go through all this. I started in 1995, and I'm nowhere yet. And then there are commentaries, yes. So the nutshell of Rig Veda, further, both philosophy, shastras, Upanishad dialogues, clarifications, and commentaries. Bhagavad Gita is a complete commentary. So how do we access the sources? The easiest source is the commentary, Bhagavad Gita. And if you go beyond that, then you must go to Shankaracharya. His books are very easy to understand and they are very well translated in English as well. It talks about the Prakriti, Tattva Bodh. It talks about the self-realization, who is the self, Atma Bodh, and it tells us about the general cosmos. So in this way, we are able to. So, what are we trying to focus? That instead of the original sources, which you can glance over and see where they were going, the trend of their thought, their aspirations, and whom they were offering oblations, we can do that. But if the task is daunting, then we read the commentaries and shastras and Upanishads. Okay, and they are pretty nicely translated, easy to understand. And they are in the form of dialogue. Impact of colonialism and foreign ideologues. You see, the other day I was listening to some of the um, uh, commentary by some analyst on a television show, and they were showing that foreigners are complaining. The foreigners are coming and enforcing their ideology on us. You see, now who is us? Actually, us was the Native Americans. And this is what the Europeans did. They destroyed their tradition. So they also enforce a foreign ideology on the native people. And then, wherever the missionaries went, they converted people by fraud, by power, by sword, by anything. Any means unfair or fair, normally unfair. So, an example, and Hindus are unable to counter the ridicule, and our reaction is like hand down look. It shows, that we ourselves are on the defensive, and we have cultivated a kind of self-hatred. A person who is for no reason apologizing, like, one of the sanstha, I think 10 years or 12 years back, they started apologizing to the government and to the academia that we apologize for the caste system. We never started it, we never knew it, it was enforced on us in the form of feudalism, and here we are apologizing. What are you apologizing for? So we sent a lot of, protest against that kind of. Who are you to tell me that uh, this is, something was wrong, whereas something is not. In the next lesson, we are going to do the Vedic social structure, and we'll talk about that. So Hindu self-hatred, where has it come? Lack of knowledge and not prepared. We haven't prepared succinct kind of answers to the allegations or a defense mechanism. So we immediately go into giving to ridicule. Now, I give you an example. A person who is wrong and apologizes for being wrong is honest. He acknowledges that I was wrong and I apologize. The one who is in doubt whether he is wrong or right, he says, I'm sorry, he's a wise man. Why? Because he understands that if he doesn't know, he is willing to accept your counter argument. But the one who is right and knows he is right says, I'm sorry, who is he? He is a Hindu. For unnecessary reasons, you yield. So, and this is kind of a joke I manufactured. At the level of organizations, some introspection is essential. In fact, it is crucial that if we want our next generation to hold on to their identity and more than that, our dignity, where we are rooted and how proud we are of that heritage and how we can proudly carry it out, projecting it to our posterity. So while others learn to appreciate the narrative, we have to create the narrative. So now fundamentalism. This is a recent trend. In the academia journal, there are at least 10, 15 long papers. They call it research paper, academic quality paper. And they are around the theme fundamentalism in Hinduism. Fundamentalism. What is fundamentalism? And what are the fundamentals? First of all, if you are calling me fundamentalism, you have to know what my fundamentals are. And if I believe in my fundamentals, chances are that they have a scientific validity and true to the reality, semblance of truth to the reality. If those are my fundamentals, then if I'm I'm fundamentalist, what's wrong with that? But the way they think that fundamentalism means that we are primitive, barbaric, and we are stuck to the old primitive verses. So that is how they feel. Whereas I if I know the fundamentals, and I do, to me, yes, I'm a fundamental. I'm a very conservative person. I am, beside that, I'm traditionalist. So, and I'm very proud of it because I know what the fundamentals are. We are amenable to questioning, argumentation, and logic. In one of the interfaith meetings, conferences, hundreds of people were there. At the end of it, they said that, do you agree there are more than one ways of thinking of the divine? And only the Buddhists, and I said, yes. And all the others from different denominations of Christianity and Islam, they said no. Theirs is the only way of the final word on it. Okay. So we are not dependent on one book. If I am writing a book, I am learning from hundreds of books, and it takes time. Lack of dogma. We don't have a dogma, you see, which cannot be challenged and which is etched on stone. Absolutely not. Now, this is another interesting question. Every time the Virginia Department of Education, they change the curriculum, and I get to review it. And every time I am bogged by this founder of your dharma. If it is man-made, then there is a founder. If we don't know how it started, it is a cosmic law. And who can be the founder of the Dharma? So then they say, write anything. But you have to fill this column. Because we have put for Christianity, Jesus, and for Islam, this, and for Buddhism, Buddha. So you have to write the founder of it. So what is the choice? You write Vedic rishis. At least they eloquently described and expressed their emotional experience of the cosmic reality. They are not the founder of Dharma, but they explained and expressed, and they were awestruck by it. So they cannot be the founder. Which aspect and aspect should we drop in order to avoid being labeled as fundamentalists? Now, this is a challenge to all of you intellectuals to figure out, in order to please them, that we are not labeled fundamentalists. Which aspect should we? The psychology that is explained in Bhagavad Gita first two chapters, or the Sankhya, or the specificity of atoms as described in Visheshika? What should we drop in order to be not fundamental? Okay. So we'll go over some of the fundamentals as cultural ethos. Mandates or aspirations. So now let us see, in the light of global accusation of being fundamentalist or primitive, following statement, which one is enforced by any centralized authority? Do we have a centralized authority which has enforced this? The whole world is in us, Atharva Veda says. Atharva Veda says, how I have to go through the entire thing, who exactly said. Several people said those verses and wrote paragraphs, and that is a compilation. So we don't know who said that. And this is not a dogma. It is correct, the whole world is a nest. It is giving us sustenance and cohesiveness and binding, connectivity, all of it. Let us share and enjoy together. The third place. What's wrong with this fundamental? Let noble thoughts come to us from all sides. What is fundamental? This is fundamental to our viewpoint, how we treat others in society and guests, hospitality. So, and how amenable we are to other people's ability to comment or add to our knowledge. So the whole world is one family, Hitopadesh. Now, please remember some of these kind of quotes, one-liners. These are one-liners, and they are here and there. One can find easily in here. Even Chanakya's Lagu Niti, that also has this kind of one-liners. So now, priest is the middleman for passage to heaven. We do not believe in heaven. We call it Develokan, and which means the collective consciousness, the firmament where everything is shining, the illuminating kind of realm. So priest is not the middleman. We don't have a priest. Okay, temple going is not even a tradition. It has started only in the last about 7-8 centuries, maybe 1,000 years. So priest is not the middleman, and confession is not necessary. If I confess that I created this, I did this wrong, the wrong is already done. It's in the past now. Now there are repercussions of that wrong, immediate repercussion or long-term repercussion. So how can you mitigate it? Something you have already thrown in the air, and it has obviously some reaction, some repercussion. Somewhere it has to conclude as an action or result. So these are meaningless things, and we do not believe in that. This is their fundamental thing. And going to the temple and praying that please mitigate my future sins or my current issues, problems, or vyatha, pain. That is for our own satisfaction, our own satisfaction. We accept it liberally, voluntarily. It is not enforced by any middleman or anybody. And okay, building astha. So unless you have really understood the basic tenets of Hindu Dharma or cosmic reality, how we relate to Prakriti, astha cannot be built by asking people to do this chant. Now chant this mantra 10 times, 11 times. And the Pujari says for 3 days, you have to continuously chant Mahamritanje mantra 100,001 times. You see, now it is a very useless activity because self-purification comes when we are chanting, not somebody else is chanting. That does not purify me, or that does not help me. That does not teach me humility. That does not tell me my own desire for mukti or liberation or whatever I am asking for. So that kind of thing. Dharma is a tool for shaping personality and proper behavior, and unless there is a really good guru and lineage, you can learn more from the books if you read them with an open mind. A guide for conservation of resources and preservation of ecological balance. These are some of the key aspects. And since they are so scientific, and even currently every country is in some way acknowledge it, that yes, we should conserve the resources. Yes, we preserve the ecological balance. And yes, faith tradition mold personality and guide us towards proper behavior. It is not indoctrination or dogma propagation, but it is it is introspection, and it is reading. The end goal is liberation from suffering, anguish, and mental stress. And to in the last 5 years, actually, it started probably 20 years back in an unnoticeable way. People have rejected faith traditions. Hmm. And their communities, they are suffering because they are not sure of their identity. They don't know if they are suffering or they have some kind of anguish or mental stress or dilemma, where to go. You see, what is the parameter, the controller of the parameter, or somebody who can explain to us and do this for us, help us achieve peace of mind and harmonious relationships. So the end goal is this. And to that extent, if the Christians are going, children are going back to their faith, it's not a bad thing. You see, faith in any God, whatever you call a higher authority, is not a bad thing unless you enforce it on others. Because this gives you an anchor, a rootedness, and this also gives you something, some scapegoat. If something goes wrong, you can always say, this is how God wanted it, before, without acknowledging our own fault. So it's a kind of anchor, it's a scapegoat. And at the moments of distress, you turn inward for meditation to resolve that kind of distress. So scientific aspects build astha better than just following tradition. See, as children, most people in those days used to read Amar Katha, and those were stories with morals, and some stories from Panchatantra, and there were a lot of small little books for that. And that used to help an understanding of tradition without giving us the foundation pillar of astha. Foundational pillar of astha is somebody you believe scientifically to be true and somebody which you believe in on a scientific conceptual basis. The roots of that sampradaya, pratha, tradition. So the role of vibrations and silence for peace of mind. These are the things which build astha. And the question is everybody who is a grandparent doing this in their grandchildren? If not, then let's wake up. Because otherwise they'll go with the osmosis which is created by the social media and the television shows and stuff like that. So therefore, if you have to build astha, the involvement has to be by the learned previous generation. So the involvement of the parents, involvement of the grandparents, and involvement even of the neighbors. Sometimes neighbors come out with good advice, but now there's no neighborliness left when the nuclear families are and very notions of privacy. When the whole system aura of the cosmos is interdependent, interconnected, and we are seeking to be nuclear and private, is there no sense in that? No. So scientific aspects are the only things which build up a real appreciation of traditions. And once we do that, then we understand the role of vibrations and even no vibration at all, silence for the peace of mind. Okay. Position of authority. Now, this is a recently coined thing. Many intellectuals, they call themselves Indologists. I have not met anybody who can explain to me what does the word Indology mean. Science of India, science of Indi. I mean, it defies any kind of whether you are linking with a root or whether you are linking with a dialect. No. So that Indologists, but then they call themselves. So these Indologists, they recommend that, like other people, religions, Hindus should have a central authority. Now, is that the solution? Should we create a papacy, a pope kind of thing? So this is another thing, especially when the government control of the temples in India will be gone, hopefully. Then do we need a central authority? The whole idea is that government should not be involved. That means we are giving freedom to the person who started the temple. As long as he sticks to the fundamentals and understands them. So freedom of dialogue, self-involvement, self-realization, these kind of things do not come by following authority. They are independent effort by an individual or by some like-minded individuals seeking truth. No need for intermediaries to reach one's goals or fulfill one's aspiration. We don't need a papacy. And who got the divine right to violate these? My freedom to deviate from a tradition or question the tradition. I wouldn't trust a pope or any central authority. So pronouncements such as one who was an atheist is not competent to teach about Dharma. This nonsense is also recently coming up that a woman cannot be a priest of a temple. You see, such nonsensical ideas are promoted um, random speech on the media, passed on. And when it is passed on, already forwarded many times, then why are you forwarding? You're wasting others' time. So leave it to us. Don't give us prescriptions ready-made in 4-liners when you yourself do not understand. So women are not allowed to read Vedas, chant, and this is another nonsensical thing, which the Western imperialists coined, that the status of women was not good because they couldn't chant mantras. But what about Gargi? What about Matre? What about Arundhati? What about those people? They were the earliest of Rishikas and they were the earliest of teachers. And they could argue with the rishis and come out victorious. Now, cultural ethos and society's norms and ideals. So we have society's norms and ideals. From there grows the cultural ethos and the osmosis it creates. So that is tradition of tolerance, universal outlook, philosophic outlook, which is conceptual, respect for the individual, unity in nature, protection of the environment, vision of the world as one family, respect, and that is not globalization, by the way. Globalization word was invented to control the world's resources through hobnobbing with the entire geographical uh, bodies, governments, or countries, nations. So ours is not that kind of world is one family. Respect for elders, unity in diversity, openness and assimilation. So the very fact that there were deviation of paths from Sanatana Dharma Yajna tradition, that shows that we are willing and to accept and assimilate some of the ideas. Now, Gautam Buddha highlighted one path that let's not talk about the divine or the divine law. We are only concerned how to mitigate, control our own circumstances and mitigate our own suffering. So his focus was that. Now people say that he denied caste system. He did no such thing. That he denied the existence of God. No, he did not. And he did not believe in Vedas. That is pure nonsense. He did not believe in temple structure. That is another nonsense because Buddhist viharas are contemporaneous to Hindu mutts, you see, which later on came up in entire country and then developed into universities as well. So, unity in diversity. We accepted the path of bhakti, which was advocated in the 16th, 17th centuries, because there was no other way out. We were too scattered and too baffled by the invasions of brutal forces. For us, it was just depend on the will of this too shall go away. Let us accept it because there is no other way. So the Punjabi wisdom literature has this one sentence: "Tera pana mitha lage." It is true that whatever his will is, we should accept it and tolerate it to some extent. That doesn't mean stop doing any action and stop thinking also. You see, that does not deny us the ichha shakti or karma shakti, the power of our karma and the power of our determination. That still is very relevant and the key factor. Karma is the focus. So we accepted that path, that the whole faith tradition is built on humility and on following the path of bhakti, denying everything else. Not denying, relegating everything else because there's no point and no one available to give us that. And openness to accept. Yes, we accepted Buddha. He focused on our karma and how to avoid the misery and how to find moksha. That is self-realization through meditation, vipassana, and everything else. And they had the discourses and they had everything else, like Sanatana. But the focus was do not go for philosophy explaining Prakriti and the cosmos, Isha, Upanishad, but go for your own avoidance of misery and escaping the cycle of birth. So, a human being, Dharma and Western philosophers, uh, some people who read only Bhagavad Gita, nothing else, they were so profound, and their sayings and poems and books are really Hindu philosophy. There is Henry David Thoreau, Walden, he wrote the book Walden. Eliot was another one, and Emerson was one of the top. And then there was a Longfellow, and then Einstein, and then recently, highlighted well, a quote from Bhagavad Gita by the person who developed the atom bomb, Robert Oppenheimer. And those people appreciate it. But the beauty of this misery, in fact, is that none of these writers are recommended in any of the courses up to high school. They have never heard of these kind of people. Now here is one. The human being is part of the whole. This is Einstein, called by us universe. Vedas, purely. A part limited in time and space. Desh, Kal, Nimit. That is what we say. Vishesha Dharma, our karma, is limited in time and space, separated from the rest. A kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. You see, we sometimes think that we are the author of this entire universal experience. That is an optical delusion. Not to nourish the delusion, but to try to overcome it. So Shankaracharya says the same thing. that avidya, lack of knowledge, and illusion, maya, these are the things, two things that people have created to distance themselves from Brahma. Even though Aham Brahmasmi, but why I am deluded that I am separate from the up there or here, there, or in the temple somewhere else. That delusion is created by illusion and avidya. So basically, he is saying what Shankaracharya is saying, and this is very recent. So, but those philosophers are kept aside from every reader. I am amazed. How can you do that to such profound philosophic verses? So, cultural ethos has historical roots, generation to generation, culture and traditions are passed on, shaping and defining social identity, sense of belonging to a cohesive cultural base. Even though India has so many diverse traditions and so many different variations and paths, by the way, path has a Sanskrit root, path, and then there is panth in Prakrit. And the original word in Sanskrit is path, patik. Okay. So belonging to a cohesive culture. In this activism, or is it an essential part of historical blunder kings and the governments made in the past? Now, to me, somebody going this way of narrative, putting together this kind of narrative, is this actually like a activism that I am promoting a certain viewpoint? That's not true. It is an essential part of historical blunders that kings ignored their duties and let go of their dharma. So, what I am doing is not activist, I am actively promoting Hindu dharma as the way, even though I believe in it, that it is not an eternal, universal. But that is not the purpose of this narrative. Purpose is that what the blunders kings and dynasties committed and the governments in the past, the Indian government in 70 years or so, we should learn from them. The narrative is pointing to not activism, but to digging deep and creating a cohesive narrative. Is this an attempt to learn lessons from the past? Yes. Those who do not learn lessons from the past, the Holocaust will happen again and again. So history is a reminder. When kings and leaders make blunders, societies are fractured and cultures collapse. And there are several shlokas in Bhagavad Gita which explain, Shri Krishna says that when massive wars occur, children become orphans and women become widows, and then they are not following the relationships as per dharma. So he used the word vyabichar, which means not good attitude and moral behavior. So this is not dharma now. And everything else that path came out of this, and that is still under the umbrella of infinite, also include the subset shunya. When you don't believe in anything, it's not nihilism. It is shunyavadi when you do not believe in any other concept or tradition, but you believe only in your actions. That's shunya. Shunyavadi is also under Sanatana, Buddha, Jain, Zoroastrians, atheists and agnostics. They are also in the umbrella. You have a will to choose and sick. So all these are various paths, and the sad part is everything has become ism, whereas it is a path, a variation, or part of the whole. The subset is part of the whole. It's a slight emphasis is variation. So saying atheism, agnosticism, Sikhism, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all total eyewash of denying the whole and the role of the whole and the role of the part. How they are related, interrelated, they evolve, but basically remain the same. So I guess that's it. That's it. Yeah. Pan-Asian Dharma traditions will come only after we start talking about the dynasties and the wars and the dispersal. So Sanatana Dharma is the basis of the cultural ethos. Now we come back to the historical facts where the communities arose, where total culture components were put together, where the kings and dynasties came, and there were clashes and conflicts, and the rules of warfare, and the whole bit of dispersal because of those kind of things. Some man-made, some ecological changes, and there was dispersal of communities and cultures spread to Eurasia. This part, this entire part is Eurasia. So all of these places, they were Hindus. Even now, the words used, they have a similarity or connection with the root in Sanskrit. So we'll talk about this after the dynasties and like that. Okay, so this we should end here. Share. Okay. So, any question or anything at all?
So, Auntie, I have a question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the Vedic traditions, the culture, I was thinking, our country, India, had such a beautiful culture, but one of the reasons it got overridden by, Mughals coming and British coming was because on military side, our kings or, rajas were not strong enough or not united enough, right? So people who are scholars, or whose duty is to continue culture and pass it to next, whether they're priests or teachers or educators, all those people suffered because the army side of India, or the way Indian culture was set up, right? Like Rigveda was talking about, you said how to keep accounts, but I think, was there something missing that we didn't teach our kings to keep strong force and stay united, that they could penetrate and sort of not destroy but override the culture repeatedly, not once but over centuries, repeatedly?
Actually, several things happen. First of all, the Hindu king, the very idea that Niti mentioned, that there is one Chakravarti Raja. So to be the Chakravarti Raja, the emperor of the entire country, every small kingdom was trying to be stronger than the other. So inner fights. Chalukyas are fighting with Cholas, and then they are fighting with Rashtrakutas. And you see, these kind of internecine wars. They were within the rules of warfare. that wars will not be conducted in cities, and war will not involve farmers or anybody except Kshatriyas. Brahmins will not be fighting, and only the Kshatriyas in isolated areas, they'll be fighting for being the Chakravarti. This itself became one of the fault lines. You see, that means even at the time of Porus, war with Alexander, the rules had changed. Those who invaded us from other countries, they had no rules. Everything is fair in war. So we were not used to that. You see, the moment Alexander crossed and Jhelum in the middle of the night, and Porus was defeated, and instead of saying, letting him take that much area and regroup again, he gave up all the river valleys. They were vassals of Kekaya, Porus. Porus had not only Kekaya region, but he had all these other Janpadas, Mahajanpadas, and smaller kingdoms. So they were the vassals, and he was the overall emperor. And he says that you can, I surrender all of that to you. Instead of accepting the defeat, you regroup, you withdraw. You find that elephant is not the right kind of ride for a open war. And the creation of the mud, you see, they could not have, they could easily, Horus should have, when he saw Alexander coming and how he was duped and how he was not getting the cooperation of other kings in the north and west, Ambi and Gandhar. So then, obviously you are, there's a fault in thinking. And ego. Hindu will always be defeated because of his own egotism. And that is what is happening now. Any idiot will come up and say, what I'm saying is correct for Hindu Dharma, which is not, which may not be. So, countering each other and not developing a team spirit. So that is from egotism. And this started from the very concept of Rajniti during the time of Mahabharata also. Chakravarti Raja. Even from Suryavanshi Ramchandraji, that Ashwamedha Yagya and stuff like that. So that is one of the causes, fault lines. And the second thing is our ego is not letting us create a team spirit. We never had individual mukti. I'm not concerned with any other's input or comment or help. So we do not have when I wrote this book, History of Ancient India, I made an international appeal to all the scholars. I met many scholars in conferences, and I asked them that please help me. It is a very difficult task to put up from 15,000 BC in BCE. Let us do it together. Not a single person said. In fact, one of them said that if I have to cooperate and create a book like that, I will rather find a person who is PhD and who is an American. I shouldn't name that person, close friend of mine, which means I am not qualified. And in my own mind, I vowed that whether you create with the help of an American PhD or not, I will create within 2 years. So that, see how our attitudes are so self-mitigating.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
and also, as you tracing back to history, by 9th and 8th century, in the Common Era, people had the Brahmins are killed, Janeu burning, those things, and Kshatriyas were killed in the wars and ambush. So who is left then? The workers, manufacturers, traders, and farmers who have no clue about administration or fighting, warfare. So two Varna were destroyed. And the third thing they realized, the Mughals realized, and of course the British sophisticated the whole warfare thing, how to subjugate. And so this was that Rakhi, Tilak. So you marry the enemy's daughter, and that person will become your, your wife will tie the Rakhi on the father or the brother, and then automatically Damad, the ruler, will be somebody you worship. You see, this is how Mansingh and that Hirabai's thing happened, and he lost. Now, what was his choice? Either to give his daughter to placate Akbar, or let the whole country be devastated. It's a very serious situation where we were put. So that is, Rajasthan was the most fearless place of fighters, place of fearless fighters. But at the same time, they were very egotist. There were undercurrents of jealousy. So Hindus suffer from that mentality where ego overrides general well-being.
Yes. But in talking about teaching culture to these kings when they were little, was it part missing in the cultural teachings that they should not be like that and they should be united and you know um, joined to fight any enemy who comes to the country? I mean that lesson, which I'm sure other cultures and countries taught, like to American revolutionaries, when they were in 13 colonies, or even England or Romans, right? Was that teaching missing in our culture to our budding kings? Um, I'm trying to see where we went wrong in that.
No, again, the British are united under papacy. The entire Europe was, they were giving tithe to the Pope, and they were all, the common bond was Christianity. So they had a leader, do the conversion, exploit the resources, subjugate people, convert. And same is the case with the one person, Muhammad said this, and this is what we are for. So you can understand, where the whole thing is. Partly, and then there is the disconnect between knowledge. It was not passed on from generation to generation because there was no access to the entire northern India, and no temple is left which was not devastated a little bit here and there. Most of the temples and architect and source of the universities, they were destroyed. South was the least affected or minimally affected, and they preserved the tradition. Ayurveda, mathematics, philosophy, they are all preserved in Kerala and Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka. So that way we are thankful to them that at least they kept the tradition. So there were a lot of things. That is why history needs to be written. And somebody just now pointed out that Duryodhan was egotist and Dhritarashtra was blind. That is another wonderful thing. Somebody justified that by law, and this was the professor in a school of management. He is telling that Yudhishthir had no right to the throne, which made me really rethink about the whole thing. So, according to the Kuru Vansh, preferably the eldest son was the king. Now, Dhritarashtra was blind, and therefore Pandu was the next person who was to be the king. And he had health issues, so he said that Dhritarashtra will rule. Dhritarashtra's eldest son is Duryodhan. Now, Duryodhan was claiming the throne because he is the eldest son of the eldest son. Unless you follow the formula of King Bharat, Shakuntala's son, who denied all his sons as incapable and put a Brahmin as in charge of the kingdom. You see, all his sons he bypassed. So those are exceptions. So according to the patriarchal system, the eldest son and Duryodhan was the right person. But the fact that Duryodhan, the Dhritarashtra was placed as a king, that was fundamentally wrong. Nobody, the wife also put closed the eyes. So who is raising those 100 children? His maternal uncle, who out of malice misguided him and everybody else. You cannot see, how can you do? If your senses are not working, if you are blind, you cannot drive. And if you are blind, you cannot lead a nation. Simple. So there were two fundamental things. So you follow the path of strictly heredity and the elder son, that is called primogeniture in English, or you go by the path of Bharat and do that. So Mahabharata, the whole story, the epic, and all the events tell us, don't do this. You see, whereas Ramayana puts up the ideals, you do this, and this is the moral strength of the society and individual. Mahabharata says everything wrong that is done causes Mahabharata. Giving the kingdom to a blind person, the wife going blind and not raising her own children and seeing them. How is this justified from the DP point of politics point of view? And then a woman is marrying 5 husbands. It's not even believable. But then they are, instead of saying that I made a mistake, only Arjun should be the husband, they are trying to find out where polyandry was allowed several generations back, and such person was married to so many wives, such and such woman was married to so many husbands. You see, they are finding examples or precedent of a wrong thing to justify it. So everything that happened in Mahabharata should not have happened. I mean, ideally, that it teaches us that under the circumstances, this was wrong, and it was still done. And Yudhishthir waging his wife and his brothers and his entire kingdom. You are not the owner of any one of them. You can only wager what you possess, not anything else. So Mahabharata is not a book as a guideline, except Bhagavad Gita, which points out And all of these people made so many mistakes. Even Bhisham, even mm, everybody made a mistake. And therefore they had to suffer. So Mahabharata could not be avoided given those 100 years or 50 years of history, starting with Shantanu, 100 years. So, okay, what was the other question? Yeah, Duryodhana Yudhishthira, I addressed that. So, anyway, uh, there should be some more questions if anybody has, because in the chat,
मैंने हाथ ऊपर किया था।
आपका
हाँ जी
what was,
जी,
yeah,
वो 2-3 कमेंट्स थे। अलेक्जेंडर ने तो ज़ोरास्ट्रियनिज्म के सारे किताबें जला दी थी ऑन हिज वे ओवर टू इंडिया, और तभी तो वो पर्शिया का conversion was possible into Islam at that point in time.
say it again, please. I
In
was reading and
Alexander basically, I think in one night of drunken stupor, basically burnt down all the granths of the Zoroastrian people of Persia when
yeah,
he was on his way. Yeah, yeah. And that basically, this is basically a comment on, जो किताब में लिखा हुआ और किताब को फॉलो करना धर्म है, that is good for believers of a certain type, but that exposes you to this problem कि भैया आपकी किताब जल गई तो आप तो जीरो हो गए।
uh-huh. No,
और दूस-
that is not, many of the Hindu families have never read Mahabharata. Mine is
जी,
through Ramlila and dramas, it is
yeah.
popularized.
Hmm.
But other literature, knowing 10 chants,
Hmm.
say in the morning, Surya
Hmm.
Namaskar and all that,
Hmm.
Sandhya, Vandanam, people do not have any knowledge,
Hmm.
nor the understanding that what is the chants do for us. You see,
The vibrations, the
fill the
mantras.
void and change the vibration within. Very good example is that when you listen to a good song, the whole day that song reverberates in your mind. And the same thing is with chant. If you chant it 10, 15 times, it possesses the entire aura,
जी,
controls the aura. So, my point is, uh, your question basically leads to where to start, how to make a start. Yeah. So, at organizational level, we have failed. And at individual level, the ego comes in and we do not have a teamwork. You see? So, I mean, people
we are finding our way. We are crawling. We are walking slowly. We are not running yet.
they walking slowly is, I would say they're stuck in the
Yeah,
mud.
there is many loops of
Yeah,
avidya.
it's in a conference in, I think it was Houston,
Hmm.
there were at least 1,000 people in that hall.
Hmm.
And when I I was not one of the panelists or the speakers, I just pointed out that in Virginia we made some changes in the curriculum, and it was that those changes I prepared. I was the only history person, and one person, who was part of the samstha, who organized. He got out, and I tell you, he was so insulting. Hmm? आपने तो कुछ किया ही नहीं. I was a person who went here and went there. Even if that is true, I give it to you that you were involved. But this is not the place, not the forum to contradict or demonize someone. And let
Yes.
alone a lady who is twice your age. I mean, what a comical kind of thing. So with these
It,
kind of people, you kind of, at my age, I have given up. I'm doing what I can do.
Rajiv ji says, don't mess and waste your life handling these decoy Hindus and these weekend mandir Hindus. They will slow you down. You just keep going, you know, what you have to do on your own, जितना कर सकते हो, क्योंकि ये लोग तो करेंगे नहीं तुम्हारे लिए कुछ, और उल्टे तुम्हें और स्लो कर देंगे.
और स्लो कर देंगे. You see, the people, we got rid of caste system from the curriculum under Hindu Dharma. Under Hinduism, they had included no other social structure for Buddhism or anything. For Hinduism, caste system, as if that is Hindu Dharma. Achha. So we got it cleared out.
दूसरी और होती है.
नहीं,
हाँ जी.
we did it. But
हाँ जी.
then one of the major organizations of doctors and the sorted variety of lawyers, they betrayed us and they said that it should not be removed. So I asked the person, I belong to the team, what happened? When was it removed? It was included before. We got it removed. How it was reintroduced in 2020 again? Because one of the sanstha betrayed us. So that
Of
is
course.
that is how things are. So that is why I'm leaving to the next generation to do what they can. I tried.
ये तो प्रयास हमें तो करना पड़ेगा, हमेशा करते रहेंगे.
Yeah,
और जयचंद तो आते रहेंगे, ये सब तो करता है. मेरा एक और पॉइंट था. मेरा एक और पॉइंट
unless
था.
you have a teamwork, create a team of intellectuals, create a forum, create your own channel. Propaganda is the thing.
हाँ जी. वैसे आपने फॉलो करा हिस्ट्री में, जैसे ये आरके मिशन है कलकत्ता में, रामकृष्ण मिशन, ये वेदांत वाले लोग हैं. सो दे हैड पिटिशन्ड द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया टू डीक्लासिफाई देमसेल्व्स एज अ हिंदू संस्था. अब उसके लिए इनकम टैक्स की कुछ चीज होंगी या क्या होगा, पर आई थॉट देखो कैसी मानसिकता और सोच है इनमें.
ये मानसिकता है ही नहीं. ये नेहरू तो बिल्कुल इडियट था, एरोगेंट इडियट. On top of that, he was Muslim. He says, I am Muslim by culture. His own words are,
हाँ जी.
by accident I am Hindu, by education I am British, and by culture I am Muslim. Case closed.
ऐसे ऐसे को हमने गद्दी पे बैठाया हुआ.
So this is the kind of idiots we have. And then Maulanas are, and all the Muslims are in charge of education and human resources.
इन लोगों ने तो ऐसी खिचड़ी बनाई थी बंगाल में पिछले सदी में, मतलब 1800s में, जहां पर आपने वो बात करी थी ये न्यूक्लियर फैमिली की. वो सबसे बड़ा खतरा है हमारे सनातनियों के लिए आगे जाकर, क्योंकि इतना आसान है तोड़ना न्यूक्लियर फैमिली को. क्योंकि एक तो फेमिनिज्म के नाम पर वो लोग ऑलरेडी बगावत बो चुके हैं घर के अंदर. तो वो तो ऐसे ही गिने चुने 3-4 लोग होते हैं एक फ्लैट में न्यूक्लियर फैमिली के नाम पे. उसमें एक कुत्ता होता है और एक बिल्ली भी होता है, और उसको तोड़ने में कोई बड़ी टैलेंट की जरूरत नहीं होती है.
Yeah, breaking anything is very easy.
हाँ जी.
And creating something to replace it, in our case, it has taken millennium.
It'll take another.
Still where we are.
We are where we are, and we have to recognize where we are.
Yeah. So this is,
आपका एक ओपिनियन मैंने देखना था, क्योंकि लोग हमें इस बात के लिए मतलब क्रिटिसाइज करते हैं ना कि आप लोगों में वो ब्रिटिश ने आया इतना अच्छा किया कि चाइल्ड मैरिज अबॉलिश किया. मेरा काउंटर आर्गुमेंट होता है कि भारत और स्पेशली बंगाल में इन दोज डेज, डू यू नो हाउ द मुस्लिम्स वुड बी प्रेडेटर्स. दे वर अबडक्टिंग यंग गर्ल्स straight off the street. They would not touch married women. And मेरा काउंटर आर्गुमेंट ये होता है कि ये जो प्रथा जो आई है was to give the protected status of married women to those young girls in case they got abducted. आपका क्या ओपिनियन है?
That's not true. Your answer is not addressing on their allegation. you are justifying कि प्रथा कैसे शुरू हुई,
हाँ जी.
and they are saying that it was wrong. My research is I'm writing a paper on Ayurveda and women's diseases. So Sushirath has written so much stuff on women, women's body diseases, and Manu Samriti also has written a chapter on that. That
जी.
after the age of puberty, onset of puberty, you wait 3 years for body to settle down, and then the girl is eligible for marriage. And that means in those days, the onset of puberty because of strict vegetarianism was 15 years or so. So he recommended 18. Right? So no marriage was allowed. There goes your theory of child marriage.
No,
Child
वो मतलब
and
status
sati.
के लिए, not
Let
like
us
it
see,
was.
sati.
हाँ.
Sati.
सती तो उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंट हुआ क्योंकि उसके घर वालों ने फिर वो यूटिलाइज किया कि उसको प्रॉपर्टी से आउट कर दो. और मेरा वो डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द आर्गुमेंट वाज कि दिस एग्जैक्टली इज व्हाट द मुस्लिम्स वर वेटिंग फॉर, कि विधवा से शादी कर लिया, आधा प्रॉपर्टी तो तेरे नाम हो गया.
That's true. It was Muslim factor. But there was historically in Hindu history, there
हाँ
are
जी.
only 2 cases where
हाँ
sati
जी.
was performed.
हाँ
One
जी.
was Madri,
हम्म.
Pandu's second wife,
हम्म.
and the other was Sulochana,
हाँ जी.
Meghnad's wife.
हम्म.
There is no other. So many women were widows in
हाँ जी.
and trillions
हम्म.
after Mahabharata. Did they
हम्म.
commit sati?
No.
No. Did Shri Krishna say, go and burn yourself? Case closed. So you see, there are so many mythical notions. That is why I want to read this history book and come out with your conclusions. You can
जी.
add on it,